Welcome to the Wizard of Cause, your go-to podcast for social impact, where we speak to innovative businesses, how they give, and of course, the charities that they love and inspire them. Now, whether you're an entrepreneur, a startup founder, or a business professional looking to stay ahead of the curve, the Wizard will show you how to build lasting social impact on the world. Are you ready to grow, give, and be inspired? Let's get started.
Hey, are you looking to scale your business from five figures to six figures or six figures to seven figures? If you are, I have the perfect thing for you. What I want you to do today is I want you to go download a book. This book is going to take you through my 3-pillar system. It's 100% free. All you have to do is go to growfast.cash. I say again, go to growfast.cash and you're going to be able to download my free international best-selling book, which is called Be Good, Be Brief, Be Gone. You can take that book. It's going to help you scale your business to the next level. Again, go download it. Be good, be brief, be gone. Growfast.cash. I say again, growfast.cash. Enjoy.
I am here today with my buddy, my close personal confidant of the last couple of weeks, Blazer Smith. I'll let him unpack that name for you. Blazer Smith is with National Christian Foundation. I love that he has such a heart for what he does. And we show how we mix faith and giving and all these pieces. And we realize that in our business lives, there's a colored thread that goes all the way through the back of it, right? That helps sew it all together. So Blazer, thanks for being on here with us today. Now, like I always say, buddy, tell me who you are, and what you do.
Well, thank you, Will. Thank you for the opportunity. Great to be here. So, first and foremost, my name is Blazer Smith. You might be wondering what is my name? Is that a nickname? It's actually my mother's maiden name. So my full name is Christopher Blazer Smith, but I always go by Blazer just because it's mother's maiden name. Always gone by it. But yeah, I'm married to a German wife as of 9 years. I have 2 children, one on the way. So I got a 4-year-old boy and a 2-year-old boy. And then one boy that's due March 25th. Lived a bunch of places, 7th generation Kentuckian, worked in Capitol Hill.
Oh,
for a
wow.
while.
I didn't know that. Okay.
Yeah, own a safety business. I'm currently on the board and have the privilege of helping people experience transformational generosity. So I consider myself to be a generosity catalyst, and so help people experience transformational generosity, and also a follower of Jesus. So there's a lot there.
Amen to that.
From investing and other stuff. But yeah, I love what I do and feel like I got one of the best roles imaginable.
Okay, now I'm gonna say this to everybody out there, especially the kids in the back, to tease this buddy that I've grown a little fond of. If my name is Christopher Blazer Smith, I would go by Blazer. I would want to stick out a little of the crowd, right? That is the disco ball walking through the room. What, Blazer? Nobody is going to forget that.
That's right.
And I love that. So the wonderful thing about this is, right, and I tell my children, I tell these kids at church and everything, I tell people I meet every day in life, because because of what we do, we always jokingly say, sharing the credit, everything we touch gives, right? And that's a point. But we say, don't believe the TV shows and the movies and yada yada, where the businessman, the businesswoman is always this evil, maniacal thing, and choking people out, and to get one more penny, and throwing people down the mountain. Instead, what I've always seen is in America, at least 80%, and if that small a number of businesses, actively give. Right. And I love that.
Yeah.
I find that to be inspiring every day. But as a great lead into that, so why should business owners care about generosity? I mean,
Well, it's a
how does the
great
average guy
question.
get into that?
Yeah, well, I think that number one thing is it's a weapon against burnout. I mean, I think it's from a purely practical standpoint. I mean, when you look at generosity, I don't know of any trusted organization or company
Mm,
that isn't generous. And generosity is a fuel for trust. It's a fuel, for health. It's a fuel for authenticity in the marketplace. I mean, you look at like the one some of the biggest brands I think right now in the world. I mean, one of which is, I mean, everyone knows what TED Talks are.
mhm.
They gave away their brand, and you know, who doesn't want to go to a TED Talk? Who doesn't want to be on TED?
Right.
Mr. Beast, one of now I'm a little bit older for Mr. Beast, but you look at one of the most influential marketers in the world. His whole mo is generosity. So there's so many. Those are just two examples. But then I think about Apple, and you're getting value add above and beyond what people expect, and it's simple, it's easy, and there's so many other components that I think fall within that realm of generosity. Generosity is a differentiator. It's a protector of health. And also, it's the new trend, the new normal. 71% of folks that are millennials, the younger generation, I don't care what you do, what you say, what good are you doing? And when you have people that expect, I'm not going to do business with you, I'm not going to work for you unless you're triple bottom line, what else are you doing? That's a huge reality that some business owners are aware of, some of them aren't. But, 70, 80% of business owners, you have to have faith, regardless of what that's, religious faith or, you can't start a business when you look at 90% of small businesses fail in the first few years and say, you know what, I'm just going to believe everybody. You got to say, I believe in this, I trust this. And you think about too, what is more generous than providing jobs and opportunities for people to be free, to grow, to have
Mhm.
their own destiny. And so, it's generosity is essential, and there's so many components. But the other thing is generosity is for our hearts. I think I used to think, oh well, generosity is it's for other people, and then I made a bunch of money, and I realized, gosh, I'm more alone than I've ever felt. My marriage is struggling. I don't know how to be honest with people about my fears and struggles because I'm afraid they're going to take advantage of me. And it's a lonely place because, whether in the church, you know, just I didn't necessarily feel safe in the context of having conversations, relationships, running a business because I can't have those conversations with my employees. My wife sometimes knows, sometimes doesn't. But one of the things that's freed
That
me
never
up
happens.
to, yeah, that freed me up is being able to learn how to give of my time, my money, my relationships, and realize I need this. Like you may not need this, someone else, but I need it because when I've given, it's freed me up to promote better culture with my employees, to be more honest, to be more free, because I don't want to be owned. My time when I'm not working, I want to be with my kids, I want to be with my family.
Mm.
But the hard thing is the distractions are ever present. But when I can focus on what am I passionate about, it frees up every facet of my life. And so, yeah, I mean, it's good for health, it's good for culture, it's good for profitability. It builds trust with suppliers, partners, investors, and then the other thing is we need it, And I think so. There's a lot of components of that, but I think sometimes I can get in this mindset of, oh well, generosity is this one thing, and reality is it's who you are, and when we are operating who we are, then we're always going to be generous because that's just part of the nature of it.
I'm going to tell you, you knocked. I feel like emotionally, I had a feeling knocked loose out of my mouth because of all the times I've heard that. Right? I've never heard out of the gate first thing. Well, for one, it prevents burnout. I've never thought about it boiled down like an information reduction sauce in that simplistic term. I think God built something into us. I think we like giving. I think we want to give. Having years ago with like my Rotary group, I did the little. We didn't ring the bell, but we did a Salvation Army thing in a mall. We had the coin collection, and we could shake it. I learned you can't cherry pick who's going to give
Yeah.
and who's not. But I would see one thing that really, really struck out to me was the number of children that gave, right? And
Oh yeah,
sometimes they pull out, they dig in and whatever change they had in their pocket or the whole dollar. What I mean, it was a number of years ago, right? But and it might be a dollar, and I'm like, when I'm looking at that kid, I'm like, a dollar that might be everything that kid has. They didn't care. Now, yes, they didn't have an electric bill. Yes, they didn't have a mortgage, but that's not the point. Is the point was even if were taking all their money, they looked at this thing, they didn't know who it was going to go to, but they know it would make them feel good, right? And I see so many brands do it. I see so many things, and for so many people to use it to have social impact, to use it to gain to get a foothold, to get their head above all the noise and maybe make their company stick out a little bit. I think um, I think to hear somebody say one, it prevents burnout. The conversation
sure.
that starts alone says that means there's something that we're denying to not give, right?
Oh yeah.
I
Well,
mean,
it's focused too. It's like, I mean, I think too, would you want to work for a company where you're getting the bare minimum salary and the business owner is enriching himself at the expense of you? Or do you want to work for a company where, the business owner is you're making more than business owner because the business owner is thinking about how do I focus on creating a thriving culture and really providing value and really loving my shareholders and my employees and then creating lasting legacy and impact. Now, I don't think it's an either or. It's not, hey, well, the employees need to get more. I mean, if you're a business owner, you take risk, of course, but I don't know any employees that want to work for an ungenerous business owner. But what does generosity mean and how do you do that? I mean, there's so many different creative solutions and ways, but I think the point and spirit is who the nature of capitalism, I think, is generosity. Hey, I'm going to serve you. So if I serve you really well, will you give me money? Like, yes, great. Well, that is awesome, and that's there's so much power and freedom in that. But I think there's a lot of negative thoughts because, oh, well, this person, they made too much money and we need to penalize them. That's not going to help anybody. It's, what is my value add that I'm bringing to society relationally, emotionally, spiritually, financially. And when those things are aligned, I mean, magic happens. I'm a huge fan. I think it's essential in every facet of life, especially
well, let's
business.
let's kick that up a notch. So let's tackle it from the perspective of biblical generosity.
Sure. Yeah, it's great. I don't know. When I read scriptures, I mean, I mentioned I'm a follower of Jesus. Whether or not
I'm right
you
there
are or
with you.
anyone else is, yeah, that's fine. But I think there's something really important when we look at the Bible and we look at its influence. And when I read scripture, I see a lot of examples of the power of generosity, both good and bad. You know, and you look at Saul. Okay, he wasn't really. He was started out generous and ended poorly. You look at David. I mean, you look at, I think, the whole story of Jesus. Like, I'm going to give my life so you can have freedom, you can have joy, you can have peace. And I mean, even I'm not a prosperity gospel guy per se, but even in the context of Micah, it talks about, test God. Don't test God but with one thing, and that's, your resources. And I've, in my experience, have noticed the poorest I've ever been is when I have been financially not giving or not giving of my time, my relationships. The wealthiest I've ever been is when I am inconvenienced to no end and I'm giving without ceasing. Now, there's a balance on codependency and all this other stuff, but the reality is when I read scripture and I look at, Ruth, I look at David, I look at Jesus, I look at all these figures, even Samson, people that are questionable, it's like, oh, wow, this person had a screwed up life. The theme that resonates with me is this image of generosity, of serving someone unconditionally, providing love. And that's where I've experienced transformation in my marriage, my friendships, my relationships, my business, my employees. But what does the Bible say about that? I think it's transformation. Like, how do you become unified, and how do you experience your identity and calling? And that's a powerful thing, of You look at all the positive stuff and negative stuff. Generosity is a huge theme through all that.
Amen to that. So you said it. You've got a German wife now. This is German heritage or from Germany wife?
Sure, but German. She's German. Actually, my kids are. I'm outnumbered. I got two German kids and German wife, and they're dual citizens. And so, yeah, you never know that she's German unless she starts speaking German. But it's.
Okay, so I'm just going to say it. Um, I think German food is one of the unsung heroes of the comfort foods of the world. I
Oh
mean,
yeah,
oh my golly, I grew up with this one boy. He had it. His mother was Austrian, and she could cook.
I
And
know.
she,
Yeah, it's pretty powerful. You got to watch it though. Meat, beer, and cheese and
oh
bread.
golly, but he just it's like Valhalla for men, right? I'm like I'm gonna go on the
Yeah,
couch and pass out into a happy, very satiated, stuffed, gut, coma, but I'm gonna have a smile on my face because it was always so good. So let me ask you this: you had a time machine
sure.
and you could go back and not to make $1 billion, and and a lot of people would be kill Hitler, meet Jesus, right? No, no. If you could go back into a time machine, and forgive me for the weird question, but I like to throw these in here and keep it more personal. At dinner parties, I realize we're sitting there, and we're with some friends, and we always have these weird theoretical questions. We do the time machine question, and it almost always goes back to food because food is such an integral part of our life, right? Be
Yeah,
not odd, right? Taste the Lord and see that He is good, right?
yeah.
So here's my question: if you could have a time machine and you could go back to one time in your life because this one person made this one dish, this food, this one restaurant from your childhood that may or may not exist anymore, where would you go? What would it be?
It's a really good question. I'm not prepared to answer that question, but because I am a big foodie.
Your grandmama didn't make you something, and you can't get it just right. Just one little place you went to when you were a kid, but that was 30 years
Yeah,
ago, and you can't get there anymore. They say you can't go home, and it almost always comes back to food for some reason.
yeah. I mean, I feel like there's so many memories. It's really hard for me to be able to kind of quantify that, to be completely honest. But uh,
Chew on it mentally. Chew on it mentally, because then when you think about it, Christmas is going to come up. You're going to end up talking with a family member, and you're going to think,
well, I
"Oh,
would say I would say one memory that's very recent. I'm trying to think of the past. I went to a restaurant and I had a phenomenal dinner with my wife,
mhm.
and we had a great conversation. And I had one of the best steaks I ever had in my life, and it was a bison steak
Oh
with a
wow,
strawberry reduction, and it was out of this world. And I never even thought about strawberries and vinegar and
right."
cooking and it's super sweet. And then anyway, but I would say I think a lot of the food for me was I think baking maybe sugar cookies with my grandmother, um, and just having those experiences of just quality time. I think for me, a lot of it's the time. I think the food, I love the food, but I also have a very unique palate, and I think it's really not to say that my mother wasn't a good cook. I think she was, but my dad was a very picky eater, and so I'm a very adventurous eater, and so I always
A
spent
good cook, but
time
a
with
picky
people.
eater, so you might have gotten limited. And
I was very limited, and so I remember the first day that I discovered Indian food. I was like 11 years old, and I had to wait every 4 years to go because it was just too out there. And so, like when it comes to out there experiences, for me, a lot of it was when I started becoming a little bit older. But then I think the quality time of just having, like sugar cookies with my grandmother and just some of the conversations really struck me. And I think it goes back to that generosity. I think the other is, um, you know, I think being around people that love hosting, like I got a
Mm.
friend, he owns a few restaurants, and I love hanging out with him because it's just abundance. He's always doing research, and so he'll go to a restaurant and order a bunch of items, and I think it's really just because he likes hosting people, not because he really needs to do it. But when you go to a restaurant, you order everything in the menu.
Mhm.
First off, I don't do that, and I don't know anyone else except for maybe one or two people. But it's just fun. It's fun to be around that when you have those experiences and then you realize you're just present with one another. I love the meals though. I think that what you're talking about makes me think about that. I wish I had a more readily available story, but I can't think of one other than just having Christmas cookies with my
Actually, I
grandmother.
love. I think you said it right, but you gave it another spin, and you said making the cookies with my grandmother, right? Because
Yeah, it's a time.
that's Christmas Eve, not Christmas. It's the anticipation, right? It's the knowing it. It's you're going to be eating these cookies, but you're spending the time with the family. You've got your hands in the dough. You've got your hands, you know,
Yeah.
in amount, in and amongst your grandmother. That seems to be a very very close time. Why that's making me emotional? It's your grandmother. But I'm thinking about it. I'm like, all of a sudden, it made me like a little kid for a second, and I love the idea. Okay, so generosity. Now you said generosity does more than that, right? It transforms. It transforms people's.
Yeah, it's transformed me. So yeah.
But how does that go bigger? Families, communities, businesses. Um, how do we ramp that up so that it snowballs?
Well, I think a lot of it is being able to talk with a trusted friend or colleague, someone who has experienced generosity. I think there's a group I'm a part of that often talks about attraction rather than promotion. And I think we're all drawn to something that is a bigger story, something deeper, something part of us. And for me, that's faith, but in the context of how do you do that? I mean, I think whenever we're in our calling, we come alive. And, I think
Oh yeah.
that's a great example. But I think, generosity is local and it's relational. And I think it's always a huge starting point is, okay, if I want to have $100 million business, I probably need to spend time with people who have $100 million businesses. If I
Mhm.
want to have a great marriage, I probably need to spend time with people that have great marriages. If I want to be a really good parent, who are the people I think they've got something figured out? So that's a huge component is who are the people I want to be like? And I would venture to say if you want to be like them, they're probably generous in some respect
Right.
because I don't know anyone who's achieved success, peace, freedom, joy that hasn't had an element of that. So that's number one. And then number two, I have a lot of relationships around the world and I've done a lot of things, but there's no substitute for eyeball to eyeball interaction. And it's really easy to do that locally. It's really hard to do that, globally all the time. And so I've kind of spent time cultivating some really intimate relationships, people that know me and I know them. So I can have these conversations because, I'm in a church now where I can have a conversation with my pastor about my giving or other things, but I can't talk to my pastor about investing. That's just not who he is. He's not a business guy. But I can talk to some friends about investing and talk about, okay, maybe I should be spending money on this. Maybe I shouldn't. Same with my giving. Is this actually going to hurt somebody? Or is it going to really help somebody? Should I get credit for this or should I be anonymous? I mean, these are hard questions and I have to process them in the context of community. And then I think money is just a hard topic. It's like I've had times where I've been broke and I've had times where I made a lot of money and I felt
It is
insecure
well,
both
but
times,
it carries so much
you know?
around it, right?
Yeah.
And am I am
But
I opening up too much? Am I making myself look,
yeah,
weaker? We always want to be, successful, but we need help in some areas.
but I'd say this though, to make it very practical is okay, who are the people that I want to be like and then spend time around them and then be intentional about how you can add value and you can get to know them and start small. And I think one great example, there was an event I went to and it was called Redemptive Real Estate Summit and it's It's a longer story I'm not going to get into, but the point is, where is Jesus in the context of real estate? Investing, financing, you know, running anything related to real estate and, you know, giving all these different components. And it was a relational gathering, a bunch of different people. And somehow I got invited and I decided, you know what, why not invite a few friends? I know they're in real estate. I'm not really deeply in real estate, but I care. I have a little bit of stuff in real estate. And so I went and 12 people went and 11 of them had a transformational experience, said, this is the best conference ever. My life has changed. But it started with, you know, three things. One, I had intentionally cultivated some relationships and locally. And then two, I heard about an event and I said, you know what? I'm interested in this, but why, maybe these people will be interested. Why don't I just invite them? And then that created this transformation in these 8 people's lives. Now we're talking about, I mean, amazing things with affordable housing that will probably change your city. And that's a very practical thing. And I could talk for hours just about that one thing, but it's little mustard seeds, you know, that I've noticed, you know, rarely do I have a good marriage because of a conversation, but I have to have the conversation in order to have transformation, see opportunities, you know, in my business and all. So, but I think it starts with who are the people. Number 2, am I local? And number 3, what things can I do? And I think the same is true with also business. It's like, how do I create a good culture? How do I, you know, create a good community? Well, okay, am I spending time thinking about it? Am I spending time praying about it? And who am I doing it with? Because if I got 2 or 3 people, then I'm going to have some value add in the context of all this stuff.
So while you're saying this, and I love it, I think one piece, you know, you've got to talk to people that are doing that, right? If you want to build $100 million business, talk to $100 million
Exactly.
owners, yeah. Right? um, Oddly enough, there's an online guy named 𝐒𝐔𝐁𝐒𝐂𝐑𝐈𝐏𝐓𝐈𝐎𝐍𝐿, and he makes about 100 million a year. And if you looked at him, you would never know it. You would just think he's a gym rat. And yet he talks about this quite openly all the time. He spends hundreds of thousands of dollars a year himself on investing in himself, just going and talking to other people, right? They
Sure.
may not always make as much as he does. A lot, you know, some of them make a lot more, which is odd. But he he's got to tackle the areas in his life that he's not as strong in. So he's got to find somebody who's good in that, you know. And too many times
Sure.
we want to take financial advice from somebody who's driving a 65 Impala that's barely running and doesn't get their mortgage paid on time.
Yeah.
Um, but I like the idea of obviously I do, but always coming back and tying your giving to it and keeping it as one of your focuses and the reason for your giving as focus. I met a female CEO years ago, and she was smart as a dadgum whip. I mean, she wasn't fast. She was a gunfighter with her ideas and the
Oh,
pieces
wow.
she could come. And you're talking to her, and she's already got it and locked on. And she stopped in the middle of a thing one day, and she stopped and she said, "Will, my business isn't the only thing that inspires me." And I was just kind of blown away, right? I'm like, and what she was meaning was, we were talking about, we are coming back to her giving in her pieces, and it was so transformational, um, uh, because she summed it up in one sentence, right? I do this work. This is what I do. The reason I'm talking to you in the first place is because my business isn't the only thing that inspires me. And for her, she's
Well,
running the race every day of doing the work, you know, making it, you know, better, getting into new, you know, areas, making it a leaner, tighter ship, expanding where she can, yada, yada. But all with the goal, the wreath, not simply being expanding the business, but her giving in it, right?
sure.
And it gave her a
Yeah.
joy, right? It gave her an
Oh,
energy.
yeah.
And I'm going to keep coming back to that because for out of the gate, well, it prevents burnout. And I'm like, it's just unpacking thoughts in my brains because I think that's I think that's such an impactful statement. Okay, so how do you see generosity as a tool for for your stewardship, for your business, for personal life, for for just moving what you want to do?
Well, I think there's a huge component that I think all starts with kind of the why is what is it for, our time, our money, our relationships. And, I think there's kind of two ways to look at it. It's kind of mine or it's God's. And if it's God's, then I'm a steward. And if it's mine, well, I can do with it what I want. But I think for me, I found a greater freedom in asking the question, okay, if I'm a steward, then, um, there's risks because it's not mine and I'm held to an account and a higher standard, but I have help. I'm not the only one that has to make this decision and it's not all on me. And there's a freedom that I found when I have that operation of, okay, I'm a steward. So, well, if I'm a steward, then what does the client want to do? What does God want to do? If these are his resources, is it for me to have a nice house? Is it for me to go to Africa and do something? Is it for me to grow a big business? Is that for me to give away a ton of money? Uh, for me, it kind of forces me to ask the why, and then it forces me to think creatively, because sometimes I like cigars, and maybe some people don't like that, so we'll do, but
I like
if
cigars.
I don't
Come have a
have,
cigar with me, buddy.
yeah, it's easy for certain hobbies for me to kind of get over the line, but my wife can rein me in, and the community can rein me in of saying, okay, maybe you're spending too much here, giving too much, but if it's not mine and I recognize it, then I have more freedom and focus to dream bigger and to think bigger and do that. And I think one of the things that's really helpful is processing that in a community. And one of the things I have the privilege of doing is being able to build generous communities and facilitate these conversations to connect people who, are on the same wavelength or maybe would not have connected each other either in the
Mm.
context of business or charity, like what you're doing and a variety of different things, sharing the credits. It's amazing that we're all need each other. But then also the conversations and questions of, it looks very different from someone who started a business for someone who's selling a business. And it also looks very different if someone has a faith perspective and someone doesn't. And we're all on this journey of generosity and we're trying to figure out what is this? What am I supposed to do? But I think when I think about the context of stewardship, I need other people. I don't know any steward or fiduciary, that can make decisions unilaterally. It's a, hey, are you okay with this? Should I do this?
Right.
But then it frees up opportunities because every business and every success of every business is dependent on other people. It's not just one person, it's a
Absolutely.
collaboration. There has to be all that. So um, yeah.
So we're getting into the holiday season, and certainly people may be watching this in the middle of June. That's okay, but right now, Christmas is coming down on us like a freight train. What was the one Christmas gift as a child that you desperately, desperately wanted that you may or may not have gotten?
Ooh, that's a good question. I would say I was funny story. I actually thought it was Power Wheels. I
Okay.
always wanted a Power Wheels, and I had a major bunch of therapy. Joking. With the Power Wheels, I wanted that, and turns out I actually got a Power Wheels, but
Okay.
my memory was faulty, and so that was the one. But yeah, then there's yeah, I mean, I had a very good childhood. I feel looking back on it, my dad worked very hard, and my mom was really also hard worker, and they provided for me, and I felt like a lot of it was just the quality time. I think I had a really good Christmases for the most part. So I think the one exception was that for some reason I thought I didn't get a Power Wheels. I think I did, maybe it just broke. But it's that those things where you think you're convinced something happened and it didn't, but it's only taking you 15 years to realize that your memory was faulty.
I was so blessed. Um, my children and my son. I've got a 13-year-old girl and a boy who's turning 11 tomorrow. But 2 years ago, um, and he's always been like this. He has no guile whatsoever, right? Just does not lie. If he's going to get in, his sister was getting in trouble for something, and and he walked right up and said, "No, Daddy, I did that." I was like, "I'm so proud of you right now. I don't know what to do. Do I go ahead and continue the punishment, but get the levy it upon you?" But I'm like, thank you for that, emotional conundrum. But I mean, just no guile whatsoever, right? Just
Sure.
cannot lie on that kind of thing. Just going to walk up matter of factly, um and we're asking them what they want for Christmas, and you expect this laundry list of demands, right? This 3,000 page list, and and he asked for four things, and I don't think any of them topped $20 or $30, and and you're just
I know it's
a
amazing.
beautiful child, right? But I've worked and I've achieved certain things, and I'm not going to go buy you a Corvette. I'm not going to drip them and ruin them, but I want them to have a certain blessing. But he asked for these four things, and his mom is just sitting there and going, "He's so rich when he wakes up and I mean, just it's just not an issue." And I'm thinking of my own unbridled avarice for my average Christmas. And my child's like, let me have these simple little things. But
I feel that, yeah, I feel the same way. It's funny how, it's like, like I like stuff. And then there's necessarily something wrong with that, but it's just funny when you're with a kid and, or child, and they want to give everything they've got to just be kind, and it's like,
right,
oh man,
it, it's
gets
it's
it gets me right there. Yeah.
it's amazing when he was his sister, his mama, she was like 4 and he was 2. She said, "Come over here and lay her on my knee," because she was going to have to, give her a spank on her bottom. And he walked over at like 2 and laid over the other knee. He just, okay, I guess this is what we're doing. And a week later, his bigger sister is in trouble for some minor infraction. So he tells her to take this little baby chair and go put it over in the corner. He pushes the other chair across the room and in the same corner, but facing the other way, and faces the other wall and just sits there because he kind of idolizes his big sister. So he's like, okay, this is what we're doing.
No, that's awesome.
I'm here with you. And I'm like, Lord, I was not this good a person, right?
Oh no, yeah,
Thank,
I feel
thank you for the blessing. So,
Looking to grow your business beyond 5 figures, 6 figures, 7 figures plus? What I want you to do is go download this book. The title is called Be Good, Be Brief, Be Gone. It will help you grow your business past 5, 6, and 7 figure. Go download the book today. Growfast.cash. I say again, growfast.cash, and download the book for absolutely free.
so we kind of danced around it a bit, right? And we have a much larger conversation. And I've already said to you, off camera of what we're doing. I need you to come back and really unpack for this, because I see this as being a little bit more of a series, because you have so much meat on the table of what you can tell people of what they can do and how to make it work and do it. But we actually got to back up a second, and I need you
Yeah, I realized
to
we didn't even talk about
no
exactly what I
tell
do.
me
We didn't.
tell me about NCF. Tell me about what
So the
you
yes,
really
so the
do. What
national.
makes it unique?
Sure. So I mentioned I'm a generosity catalyst, and so what I mean by that is I help facilitate asset-based transactions.
Mhm.
So I help simplify people's giving and maximize people's giving. So there's a few different things. So when I mention generosity catalyst, my calling is to create safe places that inspire beauty and freedom. But one of the best ways to inspire beauty and freedom is by helping inspire biblical generosity. So when we look at the Bible, okay, there's a lot of generosity, and there's a lot of this deeper story about how do you love people, how do you experience change in your life and transformation, and what is God doing, what story are we tied to? Well, I think we're all inspired by something bigger than us and something deeper than us. So what I have the privilege of doing is being able to connect people for conversations and relationships that inspire biblical generosity. So I build generous communities by connecting people, helping pray through challenges in people's lives where they can see God. Um, and then I also help facilitate asset-based transactions. The basic story is, 90% of our net worth is in assets, but only 10% of nonprofits ask for assets. Almost all nonprofits ask for cash, but they're leaving the biggest opportunities on the table. And from a tax standpoint, the IRS enables 30% tax deduction on your adjusted gross income annually when you give assets. So you think stocks, bonds, business interests, real estate, crypto, you name it. Not all of it may be tax efficient, depending on how things are structured.
Sure.
But the reality is, it can be massive. It can be, millions of dollars if someone's selling a business, or it can be the difference between suicide. Think of how many people won the lottery. Maybe there's some good stuff, but most of the time, someone wins the lottery, it doesn't end well. And you have $84 trillion moving right now between the boomer generation to
Oh my
millennials and
golly.
Gen Z. So there's a lot of
That's
really
more
good
than
stuff and a lot of
many
bad stuff.
nations.
Oh yeah, and so simplifying what I do. So we come along, National Christian Foundation comes alongside you, whether you're a business owner, a financial advisor, an accountant, attorney, um, an individual, family, and we help you make the most of all that God has entrusted to you. And the way that we do that is through conversations, relationships, facilitating transactions, gifts, and tools to streamline, simplify your giving. And then we also help build generous communities in the context of local environments so that, people can connect in a safe way and become alive in who God's made them to be. The other thing that's really important is in the context of all this, because of the wealth transfer, there's so many opportunities from impact investing, faith integration, from business creation, it's investments are one component. We're really about giving, but when you think about what is giving, how do you give, there's a lot there. And so we're kind of in the forefront of conversations, relationships about philanthropy, giving, generosity. So it's kind of, I know we covered a lot of stuff, but that's the high level.
Well, I want to break into that for a second, right? And I want to come back and us compartmentalize a couple of things and really
Sure.
give us some actionable pieces. But I want to unpack first as we're just looking at it, right, from the 30,000-foot view. It sounds like what you're saying. Um, Sometimes the on the nonprofit side, they might be out of short-sightedness, maybe just it sounds like an uglier word than I mean it to be, but simple ignorance of what they could be getting, right? Um, but
Sure.
it's easy to think in terms of cash because it's liquid, right? It's fungible.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
mean, if I give somebody a $20 bill, they know exactly what they've got in their hand. It's easily negotiable. If I'm going to go buy a
Sure.
$10 lunch, I hand them a $20. I'm good to go. I could walk in with a bar of Nazi gold into my car dealership and say, I want to buy this Corvette. And if I get the wrong person, they might not know that that bar of gold's worth 5 Corvettes, right? But if they don't know,
Sure.
how to take it, how to capitalize on it, how to really move it. But if I said, this bar of gold, and not only it's just it's gold, it's from Nazi World War II Germany stamped, and so it makes it this weird, relic thing. So it's worth $350,000. It's worth more, Well, I just watched Goldfinger, right? The James
Sure.
Bond movie,
Sure.
and had a bar of Nazi gold. So why that came up in my brain. But
No, yeah.
the point is, it wasn't just the gold itself, even, so it had this weird provenance
Sure.
to it. But he doesn't know that, right? He might, well, is it all gold? It could be fake. Am I being scammed? Is it right? But
Sure.
is that what we're dealing in? So a lot of charities don't, or they don't.
Yeah. Well, the basic share. So the point is, 90% of our net worth is in assets,
Mhm.
but how does, your local church receive an interest in your business? How do they receive gold? How do they receive all this? So we are the rails or the conduit to help people give more and simplify their giving. And so the point is any asset can be gifted, but what on the for the nonprofit side, what we do is we go and we meet with the executive director and the board and let them know, hey, you're smart folks, you're probably already doing this, but you may not realize that there's often 3 to 5x the ability on revenue, diversification, donor base.
Wait a minute. Wait a minute. Back it
Yeah.
up. I need to
Well, you think
underline
about it.
that. It's
So yeah,
three
so
to
it's three
five
to
X.
often 3 to 5x. Well, because there's so many people that have a tremendous amount of their net worth in non-liquid assets or in liquid assets like stocks, bonds, uh, you know, and they've never thought about it because no one's ever talked to them. A lot of times the financial advisors don't know because this is very specialty. And, so there's that. And then number two is a lot of pastors don't have a financial acumen and a lot of attorneys don't feel comfortable on the deeper why. So we have the deeper why and we help and we're a neutral party because we're not saying give to us. Yes, we're a nonprofit, but we provide what's known as our donor advised funds. And so donor advised fund means it's a charitable checking account. So you can put money into that and then you have the privilege, we own it, but you have the privilege to determine when and where you want it to go. And so you get one tax deduction and then in a year, but then let's say it's $10,000 you put in and the next few days and then but you don't know where to give yet, so you can spend time and gift in next year or you can wait some time. So the tool enables some really creative things. One is separating the time on your tax deduction from your gift. Two is being able to give more with one gift, so you get one tax deduction, one itemized receipt, but then you have lots of different grants that you are able to send out. Two is you can give anonymously and still get a tax write-off. So if you don't want this charity to know because it's a larger gift, or you don't feel that you want to be on their mailing list, well, we have your contact information with the IRS. So you get a tax deduction, but that charity just sees our name on a check that you instigate. But the real benefit of all these things is this tool enables you to give assets. And the way that the tax law structures, you can get 30% tax deduction for giving, any asset. Now, not any asset, but most assets. And the benefit is that you have to there's legal components, there's evaluation, there's a process, but the benefit with us is we can say, hey, what is God calling you to do? And so then if you feel like, hey, oh my gosh, I can, I only have, $200,000 or I got $100,000, but I've got a $5 million business and I need to sell soon. Well, most people, they sell their business, they pay a lot in taxes and they give money away to offset taxes or because they care about a cause. Well, if you gift a portion of that before you sell, you pay less in taxes, no cap gains on the percent you donate. Mm-hmm. And then you have control over where that money goes. And so that's one example. But when you think about real estate, a lot of people have rental holdings, but your rental holdings can be funding your nonprofit. So the conversation we have with givers is, what are you trying to do? And how do you do it more efficiently from a tax standpoint? And how can you give more? But a lot of it's on the context of assets. And people can give cash, and it's great. And the tool is really powerful for me. It saves me 15 hours on my taxes every year. But for nonprofits, it's life-changing because every nonprofit's one gift away from a completely different reality. You talk to one person, you have no idea. Do they own a business? Do they receive an inheritance? Do they have all their, stuff in stocks or bonds? People aren't saying, hey, I've got $20 million and I don't know where it needs to go. But the reality is $84 trillion is a lot of money. And there's a lot of people that you never think have more money than they know what to do with. And they're praying through, they're thinking through, and they're feeling the burden of wealth of, this isn't mine, or I need to give this away, or I'm stressed. How do I manage this? But how do you have those conversations? We come in and we work with your board and we say, hey, did you know? And most people don't know because the tax law is massive and there's billions of different types of investments, and a lot of people have their money in a lot of different ways. So we come and say, hey, what do you want to do, and how do we help you do it more efficiently and effectively? And often the gifts that board members make are exponential. If I'm contributing, $5,000 a year to a nonprofit I care about, and I'm sitting on the board, I got to fundraise, or I want to fundraise because I'm passionate, but I'm also thinking, okay, who can I introduce? How can I grow this organization? How can I help them? Well, a lot of times, if you're already giving, well, you can save your cash, give more, and if you paid $1,000 for an Apple stock, and the Apple stock's worth 50,000, you're getting a tax deduction of $50,000 as opposed to having to pay, tax on $49,000 and then mess up your taxes. It's a powerful tool for people that may not necessarily think about it, but it's also complex, and there can be a lot of complexity depending on all that. But the benefit is that when you're an executive director, it's helpful to have someone come alongside you and say, hey, can you teach me what I need to say, or how do I do this? Because most of the stuff is a big game, for universities and healthcare institutions. They have tons of people, they rake in billions and billions of dollars. But the average nonprofit, a lot of times they have a board, and they have people that care, and sometimes people that have some resources, but no one's ever had the conversation about, did you know? Because it's different to say, hey, when you die, no one wants to have a conversation. Hey, when you're dead, give us a lot of
That is a
money.
different
But
conversation, isn't it,
but
Blazer?
and so that's what
When you
most people
die.
think. They think planned giving, they think testamentary giving, as opposed to asset based giving of, hey, like, did you know that we can accept crypto, we can accept stocks, we can accept, boats, we can accept cars, we can, if you let someone know the opportunity, they can make that determination. They can say, oh, well, what about my business has intellectual property, or hey, we own this real estate, or can you take that? I mean, the answer is yes. If you work with us, we can facilitate that and help you get more of that.
Right.
But it comes down to, you need to have a partner who can help you process that. So we work with, the business owners, families, nonprofits, financial advisors, tax, and everybody else, because everyone has a need. So that,
I think I
I
think we've
hope that
got to
answers
come
your
back,
question.
and we've got to have one where we just say, what can we unpack a series of things just for nonprofits and say this is your
Sure.
baby steps and start of opening this up. But also here's one, and if you've got some assets that are in this particular area, we'll talk about it. Maybe do another one if you got assets in this particular area. While you're sitting there talking about this, I've been going over with a few other people about the profound number of people that have successful businesses that are aging out of it, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, the business is successful and their children don't want it, right? And
It's
this
an
is
epidemic right now. It's
right,
what's going to happen. It's going to
right.
go.
You've got this
You get private
giant.
equity, zero. Don't. It's yeah,
And I'm like, what about if you can give a little percentage and direct it toward your thing, and still look, for the buyer of your piece and the whole 9 yards. It's just it's just so much there. But I think it's a whole different world to sit there and say, one of the big problems we do is we look at, I need cash to give to my charity, or as a charity, I'm looking
yep,
for somebody to write me a check, you know, give me this, give me that. But it's always in terms of a dollar amount, and not, here are these things. Here's this Nazi bar
yeah,
gold. Here's this stock. Here's the real estate. Here's not always as easily a fungible piece, right? Not something that's
sure.
super liquid, but has tremendous value. Um, and it's sitting there waiting on it. But I mean,
Yeah. Well, the reality is, a lot of these things too. People talk about fundraising. I don't fundraise, and this is not about fundraising. It's about helping people. do what they wouldn't otherwise be able to do. Because you
Mhm.
think about like a lot of opportunities, it's whether it's private equity interests or it's real estate. I mean, those are great examples where no one's ever had the conversation. And when you look at the numbers, sometimes it's shocking. If I just saved this much in taxes and I was able to give away this much money, is this a joke? Is this for? And
Can you
because the
give
reality
me
is,
an example off top of your head and change the name to protect the generous? Uh,
sure.
of somebody that you're working with and and what they didn't know, but how it was such a blessing to what they were giving to and what came out of it.
Yeah, I mean, I think, yeah, a good friend of mine, he had, he was in a real estate guy, and then he had a situation where he realized there's a lot of people who are struggling with drug addiction, and he created a clinic, and it was going reasonably well, and he had, I think his family had right around 100, no, about 150, 200,000, but then the business started really growing, and then it kind of got up to around, I would say about 7 million or so.
Mhm.
And he was just burnt out, and he was just like, man, I love what I'm doing, but I'm scared that I'm doing everything right, but if something happens and we deal with the government, we get reinsurance adjustments, all this stuff. We're dealing with, people who are struggling with substance abuse and all this. And so, um, he was kind of wrestling with, okay, I don't want to get sued. I'm exhausted. I'm working, 60 hours a week. My kids are getting older. So he reached out to us, and he was able to donate a portion, I think it was about 7% of his business, and to us. And the thing is, you have to donate before you enter into a contract to sell. And then he did that, and then his business sold. I think it was 35 million, I believe.
Wow.
Um, and yeah, so significant multiple, but I mean, he was not rolling in it. I mean, we're not, it's just, a lot of his wealth was in his business, and then he sold, and obviously it was really good for him and his partners. But he had, I think it was $4 million, 4 or 5 million in his giving fund. And it's, he's still working through some of that, but he loved the flexibility that he didn't have to give all of it, write one big check, and it
Mhm.
was too overwhelming. And he manages taxes and also, but then what he's also started doing is he's used some of those funds to invest in other businesses that have a social and spiritual impact.
Oh,
And
wow.
all those money has to be siloed, so it can never be used for his personal. But he's used it to invest and fund projects in Africa and clean water and I think films and some other things. And it's been really impactful for him and his family to realize, wow, we're a part of our calling, and he's included his children, and his children are in the process of learning and discovering their voice and their values instead of just being rich kids. Like he didn't grow up that way, and he's like, I'm blown away. I was able to sell my business, and now I'm a millionaire. But like he had to start before he was a millionaire and before he sold his business, but then
Right.
it's been life changing. And he tells everybody, and we're working on a variety of different things together. That's an example of like, okay, yeah, I mean, 7 million, that's not a small business, but one of his mentors told him about it, 5 years before his business started getting up to that point. And then, have a $7 million business versus having selling for 35 million. I mean, those are big numbers, but the main thing is the difference of he's told me personally, said, my life would be totally different had I not done what, you know, had you helped me. Because a lot of my friends that have sold and done other things, they're divorced, their kids don't know anything about what they do, and they can't give because it's just too painful. I don't have enough money. I have to do something else. So it's just too, you know, he said, I'm freed up. I have a great marriage. I got a great relation with kids. I've given more money than I ever thought possible. And I know who I am and I know whose I am. And I'm able to do all these deals, both from a purely investment standpoint, but then also from a charitable impact. This goes to zero, but I'm funding these films. I'm seeing transformation, and it's like, wow, that's like, that's cool. I mean, I'm blown away. So I mean, our website has thousands and thousands of these stories. Um, and it's really cool because it's just, hey, you want to make $100 gift? Great. Or you've got $1 billion. Either of those, it's the same issue. What's your heart? And what has God laid it on you to be able to do? And how do you
Right.
do that with excellence in the context of your tax and your giving?
That's that's incredible, and it became more incredible when when his friends are had blessing, and yet it became such pain,
Oh,
and such
yeah.
problems, and when you allow your blessing to become a curse instead. I mean, that's just gotta
Well, it's so deceitful. And that's the thing. There's nothing wrong with money, but it's that love of money is so subtle because um, it's just really hard. And Jesus talks about the rich person in the parable, and I do feel like a lot of the folks that I serve, they have tremendous resources, but they're also generous. So it's not an either or, but there is a danger to be isolated. Because I don't feel like if I'm around someone who's in a different economic status, I'm okay with it. But a lot of my friends aren't because they feel I'm going to be taken advantage of. I can't trust this person. So it can be isolated and alienated. And then the same is also true if you're just trying to get your life on track and you're homeless. Um, you don't how do you even talk to someone that's got a lot of resources? And are they going to trust you? What do you say? How do you ask for help? It's really hard. But the point is, we all need each other, and we all need to hear someone else's stories because if
right.
you don't have resources, there's hope in hearing someone who's made it. But then if you also have resources, then you need to be reminded that, you know, you got there because of other people. No one is an island unto himself. And I think we all experience freedom by being connected and learning from each other's lives and stories. And the privilege I have is being able to share these stories because I mean, there's so many different stories like this. And it's not just, hey, I've got a ton of resources. Um, it's like, okay, it's a deeper story behind the story. And that's
Right.
really, I think, what all this is about.
Okay, so you've seen the movie Star Wars.
I have.
Okay, good, 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 good. Because I was going to pray for you if you had. You had to have seen Star Wars. All right. So you're in your starship, probably an X-wing fighter, assuming you're a red-blooded American, and you're about to be making your run on the Death Star. What song does Blazer Smith put in to get amped up?
Oof, man, that is a great one. Uh,
And don't say
um,
Rock of Ages. I believe you're a man of faith, but don't say Rock.
yeah,
And you
Eye
can't
of the
pick
Tiger,
Highway to
maybe.
the Danger Zone because it's like a one-to-one relationship. That's a
Yeah, I don't know, maybe Eye of the Tiger.
I the
Is
Tiger.
that?
Okay. All right. Classic Rocky.
I
All right.
mean, I think that's always a good. I think that's a good one. I think, yeah, Eye of the Tiger. Uh,
Okay, so let me tell you something's going to
these are
blow
good
you.
questions. You're just stumping me. I want to
Let me
bring the
let me let
fire, but
me
I
let
feel
me
like
tell you
I've just
something's going
got
to
a
blow
bunch of
your
cold
mind.
water.
So Rocky, right? Sylvester Stallone completely came up with Rocky, right?
Yeah,
He was a boxer himself, right?
that is a great story. I think I know where you're going. I'm
Right.
listening.
No, no. Actually, I'm going in a. I think I know where you think I'm going, but no, no. He wouldn't get rid of it because people like this story, and but he wanted to do Rocky, and he wanted to be Rocky, and obviously that was. But as he was doing it, he wanted stick with me. He wanted it to be Rocky one, all the music to be Hall and Oates. Hall and Oates.
Really?
Man eater. Oh, here she comes.
Yeah,
Right? Private eyes, they're watching you.
sure.
Hall and Oates. He wanted it to be a Hall and Oates movie. He wanted the whole soundtrack. Apparently, he was real into Hall and Oates at the moment. And instead, one of his guys said, "Let's go over here." I forget the actual writer. Is it Bill Connie? But he went and he played just on a piano the Rocky thing, Gonna Fly Now, right? Um,
Yeah.
and they said to Stallone, they said, Sly, what do you think? And he stopped and he goes, I think that song is going to change sports movies forever. And truer words were never spoken, right? Because that,
Oh
and
yeah,
then even we probably wouldn't even know Eye of the Tiger nearly as well if Gonna Fly Now, right? The Rocky thing,
that's true.
um, was not the thing because that music propelled it into such, you know, and
It's powerful. Yeah.
it was so galvanizing, right? It was such a thing. So what's something that you and your family do as we're wrapping up here, but we are in the Christmas season. So even if it's July or August or
Yeah.
whatever, when somebody's watching this, what's something that the Smith family does every Christmas? And it doesn't have to be particularly unique, but it's something that you and the German wife and children do
Yeah.
every year.
Yeah. So we do a lot of different things, but because my wife is German, so Germans are. I mean, I discovered basically. I mean, it's maybe a little bit sacrilegious, but in their modern perspective of Christmas, they kind of like invented it. So back in the 1770s, 1780s, they're like
Sure.
Christmas people. So the one of the things we do is Advent. So we have two different things that we do. So every day during Advent, up until Christmas Eve, they open a present, and so we have a little calendar they open, and we do little houses, and we put fun things there. We also celebrate St. Nicholas Day, and I believe this is bad. I actually don't know off the top of my head right now. Uh, I want to say it's the 11th or 12th, but maybe I think it's the 12th. And so we put the shoes out often at 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning,
Right.
so the animals don't get them. And then we put them out, then take them back, then we put them out, and then the kids are like, oh my gosh! So there is a relationship between Santa and Saint Nicholas, but we haven't quite figured out what that relationship is
Well,
between our kids. So they haven't quite figured out. And then we often go to Christmas lights. But I'd say the Advent is kind of that's the fun thing. We open a couple Christmas cards depending on our lot, and then the kids do an Advent, and then we kind of tell a story depending on how much time we have about Christmas season or about what we're grateful for, and it's been really really sweet.
well, it was Martin Luther in Germany walking home, looking at the trees and the starlights shining through the trees, and that thought of first putting lights on a tree.
Interesting. I did not know that.
Because if you go back to all the old pictures, and they would put candles, right? Which is the scariest thing ever, right? Because
Oh, I know. Yeah.
a Christmas tree, a fir, Fraser, any of these things will go up like because they are kindling, right? They're loaded in pine sap, and it's like God's napalm in tree form, uh, right? Um, but those were still planes and trees, but they would originally start putting lights on the trees.
Have you ever been to the Christmas Museum in Rothberg Alp de Tauber in Germany?
No,
It is, if anyone like Rothberg Alp de Tauber is kind of like a super touristy, quintessential German city. It's what you think of, a little castle and the gingerbread kind of wooden frame houses and all that sort of stuff. But they got this museum. It's a little bit of a tourist trap, but it is fascinating because it talks exactly about that. And I was blown away because there's all these other characters in Christmas that's like Krampus and others of, hey, like you either get Santa or he's going to cut off your toes. So like, better be
yeah, and
nice.
it
He's not going to give you
involves
coal.
as
He's
you
going to
go
kill
in.
you.
I mean, France, it's like the Virgin Mary that brings you gifts, right?
Yeah,
And why did we? I don't know. But
yeah. It's fascinating all that sort of stuff. But no, it's well. What about you? Do you do any Christmas traditions?
um, I mean, we do a little. My wife, cooks on a daily basis if it's a Viking funeral, right? So it's just delicious food. She came into it a wonderful cook. I didn't get that first year and a half of burnt food. Um, she's trying to slowly or not so slowly put weight on me because she will hook it up. Like, I mean, you would think she's a German Frau, right? Just like I'm going to slop that table with food. Um, and so when Christmas comes along, her and her whole family, I mean, they make 9 different forms of cookies. That's an amateur hour to the Austrian woman, I knew when I was young. She made 20 different kinds of cookies, collected tins all year long, and would start shipping them her family members all over the world. I mean, they
Yeah, that
sent
sounds like
them,
my life.
yeah, they sent them like crazy, and they were all fantastic. But they do lots of cookies. For some reason, they make chili on Christmas Eve. I don't know. It's warm.
Interesting.
Yeah. I'm like chili and Christmas Eve. That goes together like chicken and Ferris wheels. But, um, but they made chili, and so now we do that. And they're like, well, it's warm and it's easy, and everybody can go get it, and you can go sit down. But it's because of the hubbub and everybody's running around. Um, and we're going to watch Bing Crosby's White Christmas about 9 times during the season. Already got 2 under our belt. But I mean, they really, really. Now my 13-year-old daughter just loves it, and she's our. So it's a thing. It's a thing.
Love it.
Um, and with the dog, and the dog absolutely, we always have a dog. And the dog always has to get their own stocking and little things and little doggy safe treats put in there because we can't be eating it up and have the dog just staring at us while she's got to include everybody, so the dog's got to get it. But you know, what do you do? As long as you're
Oh
with
yeah,
your family and you've got food and you've got the Lord in your heart, then all is well. Right.
sure.
Amen. So, all right. So, part 2, you and me, Blazer Smith and Mr. Black are coming back here, and we're going to focus on this is how a charity can bring in these extra monies. I think that's our next logical stepping stone
Sure.
here.
Yeah, it's
Um,
great.
we're going to train so many people into what they can do and how they can do and how they can give to their charity. But I think if their charities tell their low hanging fruit, you can also do this,
Oh yeah.
right?
If you let your board members know, they're already giving to you. They already care about your cause. They're already telling people. But the biggest thing is the value add of instead of fundraising,
Mhm.
educating, because the reality is if you're a board member, you want to give and you're already giving. So how do you give more and how do you save more in taxes? But then the board members, instead of having to ask for money, can say, hey, Fred, did you know you can save 30%? You got this business before you sell it, like you ever thought about that? No, Steve, I didn't think about that. That's
So,
amazing. It's
so
like
does NCF have
it's
like a
valuable.
deck, like a little
Yeah.
kit that a nonprofit can review and look over and get the
Yes.
bullet points on and the starters, at
Yes.
least
Yeah.
start the
So, well, our
conversation?
website, so we have some major gifts. Inside major gifts is the PDF, but then a lot of it, we've got 35 offices across the country. We're active in 180 communities. We're the largest Christian grant making organization in the world. So we started in 1980 and we accidentally created a $1.7 trillion industry. Are you there?
I'm here. Wow. Wow. Wow.
Okay.
No, it
Yeah.
froze up on me a
Okay.
little
So
bit.
sorry.
I don't know what's
So
going on, but we're
there
still
is,
good.
yes, there are lots of resources.
Well, what I want to do is, especially on our next one, we're gonna download that with permission, and we're gonna put a direct link to it right up under our piece, so that as we do the nonprofit piece, we want to show everybody and let them know exactly where we are.
Oh, okay. Yeah. There's a lot of it's easy to set up a fun 30 seconds to 2 minutes, but on top of that, I'm happy to share my contact information. So I work in Kentucky, when the local Kentucky office, but we have 35 separate offices. We're active in 180 communities, and all of us would love to connect with anyone, whether you're a nonprofit, whether you're a financial advisor, whether you're a business owner, whether you're an individual, because generosity is not for one particular person, it's for everybody. And the story of biblical generosity is transformational. And so whether it's, hey, how do I receive more resources or more revenue as a nonprofit, whether how do I give more? How do I think of this dream that I have? All these things are relevant, and we may not be the people for you, but we know the people and we can connect you to those people.
I love that.
So, yeah.
That's very self-effacing. Like, even if you don't use us, we can put you in
Oh,
touch
yeah.
with them. That's
Yeah.
a good fit, because as long as you
Yeah.
give, then we all win, right? Blazer,
Exactly.
thank you so much
Yeah.
for coming on, taking
Well, thank
this
you,
extra
Will.
time.
Yeah.
We got
thank
more
you.
to
Yeah.
unpack though, and I know that that's a especially weird thing to
Well,
say at
it was a
Christmas.
great start, and it was good. I need to. You gave me some homework to do of what are the most memorable recipes for my childhood, and then what are some good Christmas traditions I need to cultivate. So
Well,
I will.
Sometimes the food is, we went to this one place when I was, but like after I was like 10, 12 years old, we moved, or it closed down, or it did whatever, and you wish you could go back, and it's just food dots, like little benchmarks, all the little places in our lives. And I love the, like, making the sugar cookie with my grandmother, right? It's like
Oh,
kind
yeah.
of wrapping presents for my family. It's not even the Christmas morning, it's the joy of knowing that you're going to be giving. And that leads in so beautifully to what we've been talking about today, right?
Oh, yeah.
It's
Yeah.
it's
Well,
the
and
lead
the
up to
beauty
the
is
moment.
there's so many really cool things related to that. But I love that you're right. Food is very important, and I think it's But yeah, again, thanks for the time, and thanks for everybody listening to the SA community, and look forward to connecting with you further.
I look forward to doing it. It'll be fun, especially. And our next one will be for nonprofits, and I'll see you there.
Sounds good. Okay.
Hey, we all want to scale our business. Hey, I have the answer for you today to help you do that. If you're looking to scale from 5, 6, even 7 figures and beyond, book called Be Good, Be Brief, Be Gone. I'm going to give it to you for free. All you have to do is type in growfast.cash. I say again, growfast.cash, and you can download the book for absolutely free. I hope the book helps you this year. Take your business to the next level. Again, go grab the book, growfast.cash. I say again, growfast.cash. I wish you the best, and grow, scale, and win.
That wraps up today's episode of The Wizard of Gods. We hope you've enjoyed the insights and ideas shared in today's conversation. Now, if you found value in this episode, don't forget to subscribe and tell us how we're doing. Your feedback helps us bring you more content that matters. And of course, stay connected with us for updates, tips, and more. Until next time, keep giving, take care, and keep making an impact.
There it is. Magnum. Holy moly.
Yeah, baby! That's what I've been waiting for!
Dear God. It's beautiful.